Johnny Fontana, Real World NF, Scorpio.
My problem with Jungianism, however, is that it ascribes these qualities to the shadow side, to something of an archetypical thing. They don't talk about trauma very much. Whereas I think, and this is what I point out in my book, In the Realm of Hunger Ghosts, is that these dark impulses in people and the need to escape from them actually arise out of genuine human experience. They're not simply part of human nature. They're really outcomes of trauma. And that trauma is experienced in childhood. And in my view, unless you deal with the trauma, you're not really dealing with the shadow side.
Back with another video. Today is going to be the preface to the master lectures, right? So I'm going to provide some perspective as to what I'm going to be doing, right? So I've decided that I'm going to come from a different point of view, right? Again, like I said, different types of INFJs. As I've said, we have the more academic intellectuals, then we have the more social intellectuals. Academics are more into the hard sciences and really those behind the scenes, right? Like really, engineering, the world. Okay. Then we have the social intellects. Those are those who are socially engineering the world. Okay. Then you have my type. Okay. Those who are really um, um, just going through life and gathering the information so that we can present it to these engineers. And then you have the fourth who are just basically going through life and just ever finding themselves, okay? And hopefully they cross over to either the gatherers or the engineers. So we're like the gatherers, right? We're sort of like we go and we gather, and then the social engineers and the academic engineers, they basically put everything together. And then you also have the spiritual types as well. They're the ones who heal us, right? When we go through some issues, they basically are there to heal us. So I consult all these types, right? Because I don't have the intellect and I don't have the wherewithal to provide the spiritual healing. So I gather, and through my gatherings, I have to come and say, hey, listen, this is what I've gathered, this is what I found. Let's make something out of this, right? But let's also have perspective, right? These high thinkers, a lot of them don't agree. Let's give an example of how Dr. Gabor doesn't agree with Jordan Peterson.
Peterson, first, he was very bright, extraordinarily articulate, and in some ways a compelling speaker. So he's an attractive figure in some ways. When I read him, I sense a lot of suppressed rage in him. In fact, I think his voice is choking with rage a lot of the time. It's interesting because he talks about rage, that you have to deal with it. I don't think he understands just how angry he is. And if you look at his websites, the comments are full of rage by his young acolytes. And it's very interesting how he talks about children. He talks about little varmints and little monsters and so on. I know that's meant to be humorous, but it's also a certain way of thinking of the young human child. So fundamentally, I see him as an agent of repression. He posing as an agent of libertarianism.
Okay. So now let's get perspective now on what's happening. Because I'm going to provide these lectures, right? And I'm going to give you different perspective in terms of like, hey, like not saying no, like I have issues saying no to my mother, right? Because I don't want her to feel bad and so forth and so on, because she comes from, we come from a culture by where they can be very oppressive, right, in their nature, right? Wanting to see you all the time, and as soon as you get to the house, it's like, oh, when are you coming back? When am I going to see you again? Mom, I just got here. Like, let's relax. Oh, did you eat yet? Like, let's eat. It's like, Mom, I already ate. And if you don't eat, then they feel bad, and they give you the third degree, you know? So it's very tough. So, but I'm going to give you perspective on that and understanding where a lot of these things are coming from. But let me give you perspective as far as how we need to navigate, because this is what I realized. I was binging, doing my research on Gabor Maté. Binging. I was like, oh man, he's really, I can use this, in order to share with, my subscribers. Oh, let's do this. And then I realized, wow, I'm actually going into that loop. Whatever, the TI loop or whatever, but the loop is coming. And I said, whoa, I need to write this down and give perspective so I can share it. So he made the references about, not suppressing our emotions. And, he made a comment. I'll just give you perspective here.
Now, I know that at a conference such as Pioneers, the emphasis is very much on the physical environment, particularly what we're doing to nature. And that's valid and necessary. But I think we need to broaden our view of the environment to actually include also the social, relational, interactive, and cultural aspects as well. My book, and she's also seen the studies. There was a study just 4 or 5 years ago presented at a major medical conference that looked at 1,700 women over a 10-year period. And over a 10-year period, out of these women, those who were unhappily married and suppressed their feelings were 4 times as likely to die as those who were also unhappily married but expressed their feelings. So the issue wasn't happy marriage or unhappy marriage. The issue was, did the woman express herself or did she not? So when I come to this point at my talk, this permits me to reassure the men in the audience that the next time you think your wife is a bitch, you should be glad about it.
So I went to the gym with my wife. We went together, and he basically, she had said something, and she was, a little, I guess, short with me. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, she's expressing her emotions. So I'm going down to for every little thing. So with my son, he was doing something, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't suppress him and just let him do his thing. And if I don't, then it's gonna, So then now it's like you become to this point of like, well, you can't do this because if you do this, this is gonna lead to that. And now you go into this loop of like, your mind is, everything you do is like, oh, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. Now here's the thing. Now we miss the paradox because we say to ourselves, oh, we get into this loop. But then now when we get into this loop, it's like, why are you getting into this loop for? Like, what? But I thought you just said that we get into this loop. Now you're telling us not to get into this loop. You can't tell us not to get into this loop when you tell us that we normally get into this loop. You know what I'm saying to you? But it's natural. Like, this is not something I'm saying. When I say we miss the paradox in my videos, I'm just saying like we miss the paradox because it's just natural. That's just who we are. Like, we have a tendency of not realizing, oh, bro, like I just told you we actually get into this loop. And then I'm telling you, get out of this loop. It's like we miss the paradox. Even as parents, like I'll tell, my son, don't do that. But then I miss the paradox. And I'm saying, hey, he's only a kid. Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you, chastising him for? Like, let him be a kid. So we miss the paradox a lot. But again, we have to have perspective and we have to be reasonable. So that being said, you have, let's say, Mr. Dr. Gabor Maté and Dr. Jordan Peterson. They have arrived, or their career paths have led them to arrive at a space by where they are so integrated into their own systems. So you have Dr. Jordan Peterson. He has been led down a path by where he's now countering, right, different ideologies and countering, Marxists and these and all these types of individuals, right? So now you have Dr. Maté, where he's now led a path where he's seeking the deeper meanings of how trauma affects us and how everything intertwines with emotion, physiology, 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 oh, damn, and biology and your environment. But yet he's basically dealing with people on that level, right? So he's gone so far and deep. But we have to remember that he cannot deviate from that, because now you have, other issues by where you have, let's say, other coaches like Tim Robbins or Tony Robbins, where he's basically saying, hey, get up, let's go, let's move, let's pump it up, where people may need that. But that's not his space. His space is finding the understanding, the reasons why. You have a Jordan Peterson, comes from a different place. It's like, hey, you're not depressed. You just have a lot of stuff going through your mind. And so what happened is that we have to understand that they aren't living the lives of the average person. Because the average person cannot hold so many concepts in their mind. They cannot be in one space of like, hey, if I do this to my child, this may lead to this. And if I don't do this, then this may lead to that. Because the reason why is because now we have to deal with the world. We have to live with the real world. We have to live with other people who have problems. So we cannot sit here and diagnose everyone and the reason why this is happening and this is that. So it becomes difficult. And most people aren't even on that level. They're not even trying to go so deep. They're just going through life. And when they need help, they seek it. And a lot of these individuals, may not even be able to receive the help that they need, because most people, again, don't associate the physiology with the biology, with the environment, and so forth and so on. So when you go to these therapists, a lot of the times they're feeding you pills and being irresponsible in many ways. And that's why when I made my first post, right, on the INFJ 30 and over subreddit, and I said, hey, give me your thoughts on therapists. Just go. Abstractly speaking, no context, just go. And I said, I know that there's a lot of thinkers here, a lot of INFJ TI heavy, who are very logical. So I'm not trying to rub shoulders. So I don't want to, just go. I know I'm repeating myself, but I'm doing it for perspective. And so the first response was, oh, that makes absolutely no sense. It's kind of odd that you are even, providing this we call it again, this preface, in terms of not rubbing shoulders or elbows with us. And secondly, when it comes to therapy, it's an individual thing. Like, you cannot just provide perspective, abstract from an abstract point of view. And I said, okay, well, the reason why I wanted to get some information is because I've been reading. But just from an intuitive point of view, I know that a lot of these therapists come from a place that they're so within their own realms that they're not really understanding how social media is affecting people. They're only dealing with certain people who have money to pay cash, and they're not taking on the socioeconomic factors that contribute to someone's, health, physiological state, and biological state. Like they're not taking a lot of these things into account. I'll give you an example.
In Australia, to give you another example of what I mean by the biopsychosocial nature of human beings, which is to say that our biology is shaped and affected, influenced for a lifetime by our psychological and social relationships and environment. In Australia, they looked at 500 women or so with breast biopsies for suspicious lumps. Now, before the results came back, these women underwent a psychological interview. It turned out that if a woman had been emotionally stressed prior to the onset of that lump, that by itself did not increase the chance of that lump being cancerous. Zero effect. Similarly, if a woman was emotionally isolated, that had no effect either. Zero. But if a woman was emotionally isolated and stressed, the risk of that lump being cancerous was 9 times as great as the average. Now, the physicians couldn't figure this one out, because logically speaking, how do 0 and 0 add up to 9? How does 0 and 0 multiply to 9? But if we understand that human beings' physiology is affected by their relationships, then we see that when stress happens, cortisol elevates in the body, which is a stress hormone, which suppresses the immune system. Adrenaline increases in the body, which disorganizes the nervous system. In the short term, they help you fight back or to escape, but in the long term, they actually can suppress the body. No wonder then that people who are isolated and stressed are more likely to develop disease, which is to say that the disease is not simply a manifestation of some physical process unique to them, but it reflects their particular lives in a particular environment, in a particular culture.
So, and I had a friend of mine who came up to me and was like, hey, I was going through some stuff. And my stepmother had referred him to a therapist, and he said he's gone through 4 or 5 therapists where he had to pay $400 cash. When I say cash, I mean like, because they weren't accepting, insurance for each session, for an hour session. And obviously you can tell, okay, these people are accustomed to dealing with people with money. So we have to put that in perspective right there. Second of all, he said they were being so irresponsible. One of them just gave me pills and said, yeah, take this and take that. And he's like, another one said, hey, you need to be careful because in the right side of your body is going to become, it's going to become, what do you call it again? Easy word. I don't know why I'm forgetting this word. It's going to become numb. I mean, he's like just off the wall. And I asked him, I said, how did they connect with you? How did they really connect with you? And then towards the end of the conversation, he was like, yeah, you know what? It's like, it's so funny. Maybe I should have called you because, like, yeah, you're so right. Like, none of them could really connect it with me. It was just one person who says, there's one person who really just gave me the basic therapy session. It was just meditation and just taking deep breaths and really breathing, and but the other ones were just so irresponsible. So he says his experience was really just, but I said that's what I've been talking about. That's why I don't see therapists. I'll actually make a video on why I don't see therapists. It has nothing to do with me not needing a therapist. It's just that I know that we're going to go down, I'm going to be asking questions about the world and what that person feels. And person, well, no, let's focus on you. It's like, no, I don't want to focus on me. I want to know, why does this person do that for? Because since you're a psychologist, let's talk. That person's going to be like, because this happened before, where I went to a party and I was speaking to a psychologist and we were engaging and I started asking questions, like really how I get, in sort of intrusive. I didn't realize I was drinking, and so it was off. And I was like, "So tell me, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? How are you?" And that person was like, "Okay." But again, I don't have these issues, right? Of course, I have issues, and I'm sure they're. But I don't come from a place where it's like I'm not functional. You see what I'm saying to you? Like my kids have great relations with their schoolmates. They're doing well in school. My wife, she's happy. I'm getting promoted. I got a new position, moving. I'm healthy, working out. My family's fine. I have great relationships with my father. Yeah, I have relationships relationship issues with my siblings, but it's because of the stepmother who's causing that rift and who's contributed to a lot of the negative energies. But other than that, like, I feel good, and that's one of the things we'll talk about. Like I said, no, I cut them off, and ever since I haven't really been sick. I've been healthy. I've been feeling good. Like I haven't had any problems. Like I've been sleeping well at night. So, but we're gonna, during these lectures, it's not gonna be about me discussing these things. It's gonna be about just discussing. Okay, so let's talk. Where are these things coming from? It's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be really nice. And the best thing about this is that it's not gonna come from a point of you having to sit and listen to like an hour lecture. I'm gonna take like bits and pieces, so then you can say, okay, I want to know about this, or not that you want to know. I'm going to present the content, and it's going to be about, okay, how is not saying no potentially killing you, right? And then boom, so we get 10 minutes of that. 10 minutes of how the mother and child, the relationship, even in an infant, 2 months, and how the mother being stressed out can actually affect, the children. 10 minutes of that, boom. So then, but again, I'm going to provide perspective. I'm giving you this information, but don't go haywire. Don't go around and like, oh man, if I'm stressed out, it's going to cause my child to come out in a certain way and then I have anger issues. Like, we have to be reasonable, okay? But again, we just need perspective in order to better navigate through life, right? So I'm really excited about this. And again, it's just taking a different approach because no one else is doing this, right? And we're going to talk about Eric, right? Typing police and all that stuff. So we'll do that as well and give you my thought, because I had a couple of people ask me about that because they're like, oh, you're going to come up next. So this is what I'm saying to you. Anyway, Johnny Fontana, Real World NF Scorpio, we out.